MTSS is a multi-tiered support system to utilize with students for both academics and behavior. MTSSA will be used to refer to academics, and MTSSB will be used to refer to behavior. This video will introduce you to our MTSSA process and important guiding documentation. MTSS problem solving is a process where stakeholders work collaboratively in an effort to solve problems or concerns regarding student needs. This is a more effective method than having a classroom teacher work independently and not seeing any remediation after exhausting multiple known measures to address the problem. In addition, the knowledge, perspectives, and expertise that others can bring to the process will provide a greater opportunity for finding success and remediating academic and behavioral concerns. The multiple tiers are layers of support for students. As students are needing more support, MTSS adds a layer of support, not a move to a tier in which one tier is left to enter another. MTSS is a service delivery system based on the idea that some students require early and powerful general education interventions of increasing intensity. For the support of identifying students who are at risk and may require support, we administer universal screening assessments via Ames Web Plus, Scantron, and ReadyMath to all students on an academic indicators 3 times a year. Universal screening measures provide information about individual students within our school system and also act as global indicators of the overall health of the system. This page gives you an overall view of these 3 tiers within our MTSS system. Because screening assessments provide some diagnostic and progress monitoring information, they can be used to assist in determining the effectiveness of the curriculum, instruction, and interventions provided to students. When we consider Tier 1, the goal is for 80% of the grade level or class to be meeting or exceeding on these benchmark assessments. If this is not the case, core instruction should be evaluated, differentiated, and enhanced. Additionally, parent contact for struggling students should be initiated at this time. Please note the caveat for potential severely discrepant students scoring at or below the 5th percentile on benchmark screening assessments. The MTSS flowchart is a quick reference guide to the process for decision-making to support struggling students. The problem-solving process uses data to plan, deliver, and evaluate a multi-tiered system of supports. Problem-solving is the engine that drives instruction and intervention. The MTSS problem-solving process is a critical and essential component to MTSS at all of the tiers and is completed and documented by problem-solving teams within the school buildings. Data is collected and used to make decisions at every level of the problem-solving process. For each tier, the stakeholder or stakeholders will identify the problem, complete a problem analysis, which is to analyze problem and relevant data, implement an intervention plan, and evaluate the intervention for effectiveness. Problem identification involves the use of data to identify a discrepancy in student performance compared to peer performance or grade level standards. In problem analysis, the problem-solving team uses data and other resources to determine why the identified problem is occurring. During the implementation phase, a student is provided with interventions as documented in the student's plan. During the plan evaluation, the problem-solving team reviews progress monitoring data to determine if the intervention was implemented with integrity and if it was successful in closing or reducing the discrepancy between the student's performance and peer performance grade level standards. If the grade level or class is at 80% and a student has scored between the 11th and 25th percentile on the universal screener, consider gathering diagnostic information to help you provide a targeted intervention. Tier 2 interventions should be supplemental to the core and provide students with explicit targeted instruction. Be sure to notify the student's guardian using the parent letter for Tier 2 intervention support, and then progress monitor the student's response to the intervention every 2 weeks with an appropriate progress monitoring measure. After 6 weeks, evaluate the student's response to the intervention and determine instructional changes that need to be made. Continue interventions until the student scores above the 25th percentile on 3 consecutive progress monitoring data points at grade level. If the student is not making adequate progress after the second 6-week cycle of Tier 2 or Tier 3 level interventions, the building level problem-solving team should review the student's progress and determine the appropriate next steps according to our MTSS flowchart. Who can be a part of the problem-solving team? Team members can include classroom teacher, interventionist, parent, administrator, dean, outreach worker, social worker, speech, and other stakeholders. This checklist is a guide for teachers to use when academic or behavior concerns arise and must be completed prior to a problem-solving meeting. Classroom teachers are encouraged to collaborate with the interventionists and other stakeholders in completion of this document and the next steps for appropriate tier support. Please take a few minutes to make sure you have answered all the questions. The updated MTSS intervention documentation form is very similar to the form used in the past. Here are a few things to note. Can you show that 80% of the students in your grade level course are meeting assessments in the core? If not, the plan should be to support the core in order to help all students. Refer to the severely discrepant rule for students falling at or below the 5th percentile. If 80% of the students in your grade level course are meeting assessments in the core, use the form to document Tier 2 and Tier 3 attendance, SEL, and academics. Fill out the form completely for each individual student, no longer by group. Save this documentation in a Google folder named with the child's first and last name. This is the MTSS problem-solving meeting agenda form. This document is 4 pages long, but includes all the necessary information that will be needed for each meeting. Classroom teachers need to complete this form and submit to the building administrator 3 school days prior to the meeting. This will help make meetings run smoother as all the information is included in one place. The top of the form is general student information. The next area is attendance. You will need to look in Skyward to see how many days the student has been absent and tardy for both the current school year and cumulative. Your building secretary should be able to help you with this if needed. Domains of concern. Please circle which area or areas you have concerns in, whether it is academic, functional, or social emotional. Next, on the left, is student testing data. You will want to use the NPR score for the areas that apply to your student. Not all boxes will be completed. On the right-hand side, there is an MTSS flowchart checklist. This will be completed as the student progresses through the process. The bottom portion of this page has parent contacts. Please note that there must be at least 3 parent contacts that are directly related to the area of concern. Page 2 of the meeting agenda form includes areas where you can list student strengths and or interests and needs or concerns you have for the student. Next, there are open areas where you can list tier intervention data and any notes that pertain to each tiered level of support. Please make sure that you attach the intervention worksheets for any Tier 2 and Tier 3 data that you have. If an interventionist has this data, you need to still make sure this documentation worksheet is included on the agenda form. Page 3 of the meeting agenda problem-solving form includes an area in which to include the meeting date and anecdotal notes from the meeting. Please circle the next step moving forward for the student, record the upcoming meeting date and time, and mark next meeting attendees. The last page of the meeting agenda form includes the updated sign-in sheet that will be used as documentation of those in attendance during problem-solving meetings. If the grade level or class is at 80% and a student has scored at or below the 10th percentile on the universal screener, there is great cause for concern and further diagnostic data may be warranted to determine the explicit instructional needs of the student. Tier 3 interventions should provide students with targeted instruction that is highly scaffolded in order to accelerate a student's progress in deficit areas. A parent letter for Tier 3 intervention support should be mailed home, and the student's response to the intervention should be monitored weekly with an appropriate progress monitoring measure. Attend carefully to the student's progress, adjusting your instruction appropriately as needed. Keep in mind that any prior Tier 2 interventions the student was receiving should be continued as well. After 6 weeks, evaluate the student's response to the intervention and determine instructional changes that need to be made. Continue interventions until the student scores above the 25th percentile on 3 consecutive progress monitoring data points at grade level. If the student is not making adequate progress after the second 6-week cycle of interventions, then convene the building level problem-solving team to determine your next steps. The creation of these MTSS documents was done so through research and permissions obtained through multiple plans from school districts in both Illinois and Iowa. Please click on the links to access the appropriate documents. Do not request access to these documents. Please make a copy for your own use. Please look at the following student scenarios to deepen your understanding of the MTSS process. Come prepared for your building meeting to discuss the scenarios and bring any questions you may have.